What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing amazing. So today I want to talk to you guys about narcissistic control. A narcissist likes to control because the thing about a narcissist is that they are out of control of all their own emotions, all their own feelings, and they don't have any control over themselves. So they typically like to control other people. And what really drives them crazy is that they try to control everyone around them, which is why a lot of the times as they get older, they will isolate themselves from people that they can't control, which they're pretty much extremely isolated because a lot of people end up leaving their lives because they don't want to deal with it. So there are those few people, mostly like their spouse or like a best friend or something like that, who will stick around, who will be in their lives because, they've fallen for the facade, they've fallen for the mask, they believe the false reality, and they think this person is a good person, although they have definitely shown signs of not being a good person. It says in the book of Romans, whenever you are disconnected from God because God leaves you to your own irrational ideas and monstrous behaviors, because God says if you want to do that, then that's okay. You go ahead and do that. But you're going to be steeped in all sorts of depravities because there's consequences to your actions. There's consequences to everything that you do. So all these depravities, rottenness, greed, malice, envy, murder, raggling, treachery, spite, all that is the condition that happens to you once you decide you're not going to heed to the voice of God and heed to what is right. So these people will try to control you. They will try to change everything about you. You will be over here. The goalpost will be over here. They'll say, hey, I want you to act this way because you're walking a certain way. I don't like the way you walk. So you need to walk the way I like you to walk. So you start walking that way. And when you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to be so happy with me. I've done what they need me to do. So then over here, as you felt really good about what you did and you feel like they're going to finally be happy with you, over here they're like, actually, why are you wearing makeup? You shouldn't wear makeup. God doesn't agree with makeup. So you change that. You're like, well, let me just not wear makeup because that's going to make them happy. But actually, in reality, nothing can make these devils happy. These are demons. These are demons, and control is as the sin of witchcraft. If you decide that you don't want to wear makeup, or if you decide that you don't want to walk that way, that's up to you. But to have someone tell you what you should and shouldn't do is a religious mind. It's a religious mind state. And people want, and that's not God at all, because God doesn't even want control over you. So why should you allow a man to have control over you? When God gave you free will, you're allowing a man to steal your free will away from you? Like, I don't understand. What sense does that make, right? When you want a covenant with God and you have a covenant with God and you say, all right, I am choosing to make this sacrifice as a covenant between me and God. I'm not going to wear any makeup. Then that's okay. You can totally do that. That's up to you, and that's between you and God. And God will see that, and God will acknowledge that, and it will be between you and God. But for someone to judge you and say, okay, um, you shouldn't be doing this, because it's all of these rules. It's rules and regulations with religious people. And that's exactly what Jesus taught. Jesus was like it says in the book of Romans, it says, a pagan that is led by reason to do what is right is seen holy in the sight of God. It is not having the law, but keeping it that makes you holy in the sight of God. You can call witness that being your own conscience for accusation and defense. So when saying that, a pagan, if you look up the definition of pagan, it's somebody without world religious beliefs, somebody who doesn't have a world religious belief, but they're led by reason to do what is right. God says they are seen holy in the sight of God. So it is not having the law, but it's keeping the law that makes you holy in the sight of God. So, and it also says the law that is engraved on our hearts. Okay, same verse. So this is the book of Romans chapter 2. So if the law is engraved in our hearts, right? And these men come and put all their rules and regulations on that law that's already engraved in our hearts, we are required to follow the law to a T. It can never change. It can never, it can never stray. I don't know how to really explain it, but we as people when it's engraved in our hearts, we can follow the voice of God. But when we follow the voice of God, it's a little bit different because, God, um, God speaks in a certain way, and sometimes it might not be in the way that man wants it to be. So God might tell you to make a certain move that another man might not agree with, but God is leading you up into a certain position. So truly, we should only care about what God thinks of us, what God wants us to do, because we need to learn to listen to the voice of God and not the voice of man. And that's the whole point, because narcissistic people want control. They are Satan. They are demonic. They are filled with a legion of demons that they have conjured up throughout their life. They have conjured up these demons. And when you continue in your sin, you conjure up demons and they live in you. Yes, your personality's there, but God cannot dwell where demons dwell. Do you understand that? So, like, yes, your personality's there, but God is not there. God is waiting for you. But when you're living in sin and you've come into agreement, now it's different because we're all going to sin and we're all going to fall short of God. But when you're living in sin and you're in agreement with a demon and another demon, because demons always bring their friends, demons will always bring a friend. Let's just say you have a drinking demon, all right? A demon that is a drunkard, alcoholic, and that demon usually brings like a sexual demon, sexual immorality, and it just kind of like adds up and trickles down. And so you end up in a state of you're yourself, but also like the demons control aspects of your personality, because control aspects of your personality, a lot of the times you won't even realize what you're doing. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, because it's not necessarily the person that you think that you know, because it is, but at the same time they're being controlled by demons because they refuse to acknowledge God. So God has left them to their own irrational ideas and monstrous behaviors, where they are steeped in all sorts of depravities. Again, you're going to be steeped in all sorts of depravities when you are in agreement with demons. That's why it's so important to deal with your sin. It's so important to deal with your wrongdoings. It's so important to fast and cleanse yourself and get control over your own body, because the hardest thing in life is self-control. The hardest thing in life is giving up what causes us so much pleasure. Most people, they want what feels good. The Aleister Crowley, like, do as I will because it feels good. But most of the time, the path of God doesn't feel good right away, because you have to give up a lot of those immoralities, right? But it frees the soul. So what is good for the soul is not always pleasurable for the body, if that makes sense. Like, the food isn't always going to taste amazing. It's not always going to be the greatest thing because it's healthy for you. Or, being celibate is not always going to be fun. Not drinking, not smoking, not being high all the time. That's not always going to be like a pleasure thing, but we are not here for pleasure. We're passing through this earth. We're passing by. So we have to understand that God is, through our suffering, teaching us, and we're growing through our suffering. So it's very important to realize that suffering is not a bad thing. It's actually like healing us. It's helping us. So deal with your sin, because you cannot be a codependent and allow another man to control you. You cannot be a codependent and let another man control your life. We are children of God. We are not children of this world. We are not children of Satan. So we are not going to listen to these demons telling us who we should and should not be. And that's why we're not supposed to judge, but we are supposed to give correction. We're supposed to correct each other. We're supposed to judge the way we want to be judged. Right? So, like, again, you don't want some demon who's under a reprobate mind, a person who is under a demonic reprobate mind, to be telling you how to live your life. But it's also important, I've learned that, like, with the narcissist, I have learned that sometimes their correction is just and it's good. Maybe they don't realize it, maybe they don't understand, but God is using them to correct you, because you're a critical thinker and you sit back and you say, maybe I am wrong, because you can accept when you're wrong. You can sit back and say, maybe I could change that. Maybe I could be better about that. Maybe I shouldn't, do this or that, whatever it is that is in Colossians, okay? Colossians chapter 2, verse 16. From now onwards, never let anyone else decide what you are to eat or drink, or whether you are to observe annual festivals, new moons, or Sabbaths. These were only pale reflections of what is coming. The reality is Christ. So all this stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, honestly, this stuff doesn't matter. All the wars, all the whose side are you on? Like, I'm just here for God. Like, I'm just here to pass through and be a vessel for God to use. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm just here to heed to the voice of God and help others do the same thing. Do not be taken in by people who like groveling to angels and worshiping them. People like that are always going about some vision they have had, inflating themselves to a false importance with their worldly outlook. These religious minded people who say that, you got to do this. I'm seeing visions. I'm having dreams. God is talking to me. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying, like, a lot of people do these things to feel important. They tell you what the rules are because they don't know how to follow them themselves. They can't keep track of the rules. They don't want to keep track of the rules. It's easier for them to control someone else than to control themselves, right? So, a man of this sort is not united to the head, not united to Christ at all, doesn't have Christ living in them, and doesn't hear the voice of God. So it goes on to say, and it is the head that adds strength and holds the whole body together with all its joints. And this is the only way which it can reach its full growth in God. So the only way you can reach your full growth in God is being connected to Christ, understanding that it is not the religious mind, but it is he who is led by reason to do what is right as seen holy in the sight of God. It is not having the law, but keeping the law, being connected to God, that makes you holy in the sight of God. And it says, and it is the head that adds strength. Okay. So, and then it goes on to say, if you have really died with Christ to the principles of this world, why do you still let rules dictate you? This is crazy, y'all. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Why are we still letting these rules, these man-made rules, dictate who we are? God is not some, like, you better do this, you better do that. Like, we don't have to listen to these crazy minded religious people or these narcissistic, demonic, reprobate mind people. We are children of God. So we are who we are. We can listen to correction, but we will not be controlled. We will not be controlled by a demonic being. Like, you're protecting yourself. Like, I'm protecting myself already. I'm trying to, sin less, do things that I'm not going to regret. So I'm doing all that, working on me. Why would I all along let someone who's not even working on themselves correct me constantly and tell me I'm doing wrong all the time? Like, because that's what they do. They want to control your mind, so you're constantly thinking about ways you can please them instead of pleasing God, instead of the truth. So it goes on to say that it is forbidden to pick up this. It is forbidden to taste that. It is forbidden to touch something else. All these prohibitions are only concerned with things that perish by the very use. An example of human doctrine and regulations. They want to regulate you. They want to give you their human doctrine and tell you what is right and wrong when God is already telling you what is right and wrong. You don't need them to tell you those things. Yes, you need correction, but not from some demonic devil. Again, sometimes their corrections are just because God can still use them to help you, because God knows it has helped me kind of like in a lot of ways, but it gets to a point where it's like, you're just overdoing it here. You know what I mean? It may be argued that true wisdom is to be found in these, with their self-imposed devotions, their self-abasement, and their severe treatment to the body. But once the flesh starts to protest, they are no use at all, because they think all this stuff is godly. It's like, you know, They think that all these rules and what they've read, they have to follow so many different things to a T, or you're going to be judged. Those are their rules. See, you have the rules engraved in your heart by God. By God, truly. So we're not going to let these demons control us. And, these are there, forbidden to touch this, forbidden to touch that, like, it's insane. Like, you gotta wash this before you pray. You gotta do this. You have God's law engraved in your heart. Allow the Spirit of God to come upon you, and God will work through you, and people will fight against you all the time. All right, guys, I'm going to have to make another video because this one's getting long. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'll make a video soon. All right, talk to y'all soon. Bye. Love you.